I'm sure you've all heard about how dieting for a bodybuilding show can crash your natural testosterone levels, and I found that to be true with mine, going from nearly 500 at my pre-diet testosterone level all the way down to 195 nanograms per deciliter a couple days before my natural classic physique show. I still felt fine at that weight despite the low testosterone, but it got me wondering, is it being that lean that tanks your testosterone, or is it the crash dieting that it takes to get there? Well, 4 weeks later, I'm at the same weight and my natural testosterone has gone almost all the way back up to where it was pre-show diet. So how did I do it? Let's take a look. Since finishing my natural show, I stayed within a pound of my peak week starting weight of around 176 pounds. Prepping for the show, I was doing a lot of cardio and went from being in 1,000 calorie plus deficit, averaging around 2 pounds of weight loss a week, to continuing the cardio now, but upping my calories to around 3,000 to 3,500 while maintaining my weight. I was at 177.2 pounds when I got my blood tested again here 4 weeks after my show, and I know that's a little over a pound above what I said my peak week starting weight was at 176.0, but something you have to keep in mind is that I had been dieting hard for 5 weeks up to that point, and when you're dieting like that, you're partially depleted all the time of some glycogen, some water and whatnot, because you're losing so much weight. So if I, at that point, at the start of peak week, had just eaten at maintenance, I probably would have gained 1 or 2 pounds just because your body's replenishing itself, and then you're going to be holding a little more. That's why I always tell people, you know, whatever weight you want to shoot for in a diet, try to go 2 to 3 pounds below that, because when you switch to maintenance, your weight is going to naturally come back up while you fluctuate some with water, glycogen, and everything till you get to a normal amount. So I'm pretty sure even at 177, since I was at maintenance now, that's close to what it would have been at 176 in that dieted state. But anyways, my testosterone went back up to 425 nanograms per deciliter. Now, that's not as high as before. It's usually around the 500s. It's been between like 522, I think, and down to 478, but still 425. That's pretty good considering it was all the way down at 195. And my free testosterone almost doubled from what it was before. So everything's back on the rise, with my weight staying the same, being super lean, but eating a whole lot more food, not being in a depleted state, getting more nutrients, getting more energy to sustain your body. And it seems like that helped. And aside from my free testosterone, my estradiol pretty much doubled as well. So it seems that the prolonged high calorie deficit crash dieting to get lean is what caused such a huge drop in my testosterone rather than just being lean. Because once I started eating at maintenance, my sleep improved, general fatigue went away, as well as the diet fatigue. Since my body wasn't at an energy deficit anymore, it was able to return almost fully back to normal just within a few weeks. And on that note of returning back to normal, I've been wondering for a while whether test boosters actually do anything, and I figured now would be a good time to test it out. We saw my testosterone dropped with the crash diet down to 195, and then came almost back to normal after maintenance at my original peak week weight. And now I'm gonna take another 4 weeks to try out this G-Test Platinum to see if it increases my testosterone noticeably from where it is right now while still staying at this same weight. It's mostly just vitamins that a lot of guys are deficient in, so let me know down in the comments if you've tried any test boosters before and what your experience was, what the results were, and we'll see what this does for me. I'm just kind of interested to see. You know, we've been told test boosters were a joke in the past, now they can be helpful. Greg Doucette has said that this can raise it 1 to 200 nanograms per deciliter, so if I stay this lean and it's up in the 600s, I'll be like, oh, you know, maybe this stuff does work. And it would be good for the case of dieting for a bodybuilding show, or if you're just on the lower end of the spectrum, since it is mostly just vitamins. But let's see what else was affected. We have cholesterol. Now my total cholesterol shows high. Before it was 180. My triglycerides went up some, but my HDL is pegged still at 81. Now, normally it was around 60 before I was doing so much extra cardio. So a raise from 60 to 81 is actually a good thing because you want your HDL to be high, and that caused this to be high. So if this was still at 60, this would be below 200, but because that's high, that made my overall cholesterol go high as well. But then my LDL actually went up quite significantly. Normally it's around 90, it went up to 123, and I was thinking, you know, what in the world? Why is that so high now? Because I'm still doing all the cardio as before, still eating the same, staying at the same weight, but a natural increase in testosterone can lead to your cholesterol going up as well. And since things are fluctuating so much, I'm thinking that's probably what happened. When I took testosterone, my testosterone went from those normal 500s up to over 600, and my LDL was way higher than even this. I think it was in the 130s. But with that, my HDL had dropped a lot and the triglycerides were way higher. So the high cholesterol I had from that trial was from a lot of bad LDL and triglycerides, whereas now my HDL went up a lot, triglycerides a little bit. You see it was 39 here, but that was really low from being in that depleted state, constant cardio, hardly eating anything. So I'm expecting this will probably go back down some, unless with taking this, my testosterone continues to go up even higher. We may see this stay high, but natural increase in testosterone can lead to that. If you have high HDL, that's good, and your LDL to HDL ratio is also important. Around 1 is a really good low risk. The lowest I've ever gotten is 1.1. It's usually around 1.5 anyways with this and the HDL lower. So as long as you're keeping that ratio low like that, then you're pretty good to go, even if you have naturally higher LDL like I tend to have in the 90s, which is close to the high end of the reference range. But a better indicator to look at when it comes to your lipids is actually apolipoprotein B, aka ApoB. And as we can see here, 68 was the lowest I've ever had it right here. Normally it's in the low 80s, and this is what you can see here. Essentially, LDL is a measure of the density of the bad cholesterol particles, where ApoB is a measure of the actual number of particles. So this shows that I had a low number of particles as well as a low density of them. Now I have a little bit higher number of particles, but a higher density. So essentially they're bigger particles as well, not just more of them. And bigger ones are actually better than smaller ones. And you can see here, desirable is less than 90, so ApoB, it's still good. So we have that low HDL to LDL ratio as well as this ApoB in the normal range, so no issues there. I'm interested to see though if this goes down some once everything kind of stabilizes and what happens, because lots of hormone fluctuations going on with getting that lean really quick within 6 weeks and then, you know, trying to fluctuate back to normal. What else do we have? AST and ALT. When I did my last test a couple days before the show, my AST and ALT were really high. Normally these are around the mid to high 20s. It went all the way up to 47 and 68. I've got a video explaining that as far as dieting, the type of diet you're doing, being depleted, all that. Lots of exercise can raise these liver enzymes. The ALT is pretty much right back down to not where it normally is. It's in the mid 20s normally, but it's within the normal reference range here. This came down some too. The AST, it's still a little above normal, but I still have been doing a lot of cardio as I'm doing this experiment, more than normal, to try to eat a whole lot of food while maintaining that same weight. And extensive exercise and muscle damage can cause elevated levels too, so I am doing more exercise than I normally would be doing, which might make those come back down. Considering that my levels were normally in the mid-20s, it would make sense that they're elevated when I'm swimming 3 times a week, lifting every day, and walking 7 to 10 miles a day the last 2 weeks leading up to the show, and then continuing that, not swimming as long but still swimming a lot and walking a lot too. And check out this sweet shirt, Jingle All the Way. Lift Miss Tree. They've got some really cool shirts. I'm not sponsored, but this thing's comfortable. It's a large. I'm around high 170s, and it fits really well. But the AST is present in the liver, heart, muscle, and kidneys, whereas the ALT is found primarily in the liver. So seeing that my ALT dropped down back into the normal range while the AST stayed relatively increased makes sense with the extra cardio I was doing versus it being actual liver problems. So the extra cardio is, helping me keep my calorie intake a lot higher while maintaining the lower body weight. So it's probably just that intense exercise and muscle damage and not actually any liver issues. We've got some thyroid stuff here. My TSH was in the normal range for both of these. It's a pretty big range here, but the increase shows that my pituitary gland is releasing more TSH to signal the thyroid to produce more hormones when it's not producing enough, which makes sense. I was way down at 195 my testosterone, and I was on a low calorie diet at a high deficit and a low body fat percentage, and that throws your hormones out of whack. All that at the same time. But these are still around the middle of the ranges, so it looks pretty good. For everything else too, these were pretty much dead on still. So no real issues there. My insulin and glucose My insulin was a lot lower than normal leading to the show, which makes sense with the other hormones being off in the crash diet. Now it's showing right back up to 3.5 where it normally is in my tests, and the fasting glucose I'm usually around the 80s like that. So it's in the normal range for what I typically see in my tests too. So seems like everything's pretty much fluctuating back to normal where it was simply from eating more food to maintain the weight even though it's at a lower body weight. So this anecdotal test shows that just because you may be feeling worn out from dieting really hard doesn't necessarily mean you need to go right into a bulk to feel better. You just might need to start chilling at maintenance for a little while to kill off the diet fatigue, get everything back into normal, and then you can reassess from there. And we see that being shredded doesn't necessarily mean throw everything out of whack either. Dieting hard to get there may be what was the issue, and I also don't really suggest crash dieting regardless of the situation because it's really hard on your body and it's more likely to result in rapid weight regain. So don't use the crash testosterone as an excuse to binge eat after a bodybuilding show saying you need to get your weight up, and then when you see it go up really fast, use that as an excuse to just say, well, I just need to go into a bulk now so I can gain more muscle, to justify your lack of self-control. But let me know down in the comments what your experience is with dieting, if you've crash dieted before, if you've done blood work, how things worked out. Again, I'm gonna be testing out this test booster and see if it actually does anything, tracking stuff like my sleep, how well I'm working out, trying to keep my weight the same, and we'll see what happens in a few more weeks when I get the blood test done. Again, hit that like button if this was helpful, subscribe for more, leave comments with whatever, and I'll see you soon.